that, then you need to just proliferate it. Use whatever mechanisms you normally use. I think it's probably a standard that you put out, like a guideline, and then start getting developers to actually do it.
We have time for about 2 more questions, so if you guys want to ask some more.
What sort of problems have you seen with integrating with Struts, Spring, other application frameworks that people might be using?
Sure. So Struts has a validator already, right? And so there's a conflict there. Which one are you going to use? The one that's in Struts is already used. Like in validator form, it automatically invokes the Struts validator. And so you configure the policy in validation.xml, and then it enforces it, right? So there's no hook in there to say, oh, go off and call this other validation library in the right place, right? So those are the kind of things that cause an issue. You could just not use the Struts validation stuff. If you just use regular action form and then invoke this, you'd be fine. But I think it would be better if we work with Struts and Spring and Rails and all the others to use these fundamental building blocks under the hood and make them invisible to developers, right? Like we've talked about doing some higher level stuff, like we could validate the whole HTTP request in one place altogether. But we haven't. We've kept it at the sort of the fundamental building block level because we want frameworks to adopt this and build it into their stuff.
Great. 1 more question.
Hi. You alluded to Pascal and the government. Have you had any dialogue with the defense contracting industry in general, their security standards and their interest?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I've talked to a bunch of government contractors. I've talked to a bunch of government agencies. In fact, my experience with government agencies started back in about 2002. I was talking to a lot of them about application security in that time frame, and I was getting really frustrated because basically the answer I was getting was, yeah, I think I sort of understand what you're talking about with this application security stuff, but we're working on the SANS top 20. And I got frustrated with that, and I went home and I said, wow, you know what? It would be great if we had a top 10. And then this light went on. And so Dave Wickers and I wrote the first version of the OWASP top 10 and put it out there, and it took off and got a lot of people interested in application security. And so my experience with government has actually not been that great. I've been participating in the DHS software assurance forums for quite a while. I'm talking at the one coming up in a month or so about ISAPI. So there's interest, but I think they're well behind the financial industry in terms of how far along they are in terms of thinking about application security.
Last extra credit question.
Yeah.
Are there going to be integration points for things like SAML and Kerberos?
Yeah. So Gunnar Peterson has been beating me up quite a bit about that, like OpenID and SAML and XACML and all those different things. Some of those, I think, would make great implementations of the API. Right? So for instance, if you wanted to specify your access control policy in XACML, great. You build an access controller implementation that looks at the XACML policy and enforces it. So that kind of thing is reasonable. I think there's some work to be done there. I think it's important, but I'm not sure. We were really trying to make a library that developers could use today to solve the problems that they have in front of them today. So one of the big use cases of this is for remediation, right? Developer gets a report that says, oh crap, I got 300 cross-site scriptings in my application. I want them to be able to take the ISAPI jar, throw it in their lib directory, and wrap a few calls with the appropriate ISAPI call, recompile, and go. That's the kind of use case we're looking for. We're not quite there, but that's the ongoing work here, is to figure out how to extend and use some of those newer technologies. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, everybody, and thanks, Jeff. And we'll be